Solitary confinement, a prison within a prison. I did over 3 years and 2 months total. Combined, my longest stint consecutive in solitary confinement was 14 months, and people are asking me more and more how I was able to survive. Before I get into this, I do want to acknowledge the fact that there are individuals that have spent 10, 20, 30, even 40 plus years in solitary confinement. And more recently, since my tenure of incarceration has ended, more rules and regulations have been put into place. So long-term confinement inside of solitary isolation does not occur. There's typically a stop on the amount of days that an individual can sit in solitary confinement because they understand the extreme negative ramification it has on an individual's mental health. And at the end of the day, we should be trying to rehabilitate individuals in prison, not punish them to the point that they're no longer able to contribute in society and turn into monsters forever. In solitary confinement, you're locked in your cell 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You're only allowed outside of your cell for 1 hour every 2 days, weekends not included. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Within that hour, you're able to shower, hopefully get on the phone, and if you're lucky, go stand in a dog cage and look up at the sun. While you're headed there, though, including on your way to the showers, you will be shackled. Your wrists to your waist to your ankles. At least that's how it was where I was at. Of course, it could probably be different in other prisons and states, federal, etc. But this was my experience. There was no silence in solitary. People were always screaming and yelling. And I have to acknowledge that people were always trying to escape the reality of knowing and understanding that they were fully out of control of their life. And not to mention that everybody that went into solitary confinement didn't make it out. Me personally, I know an individual that I considered a good friend that went into the hole and for whatever reason decided he couldn't do it anymore. Before I knew it, they were rolling the emergency cart and running emergency personnel to a cell to get him out of there. Rest in peace to him and condolences to his family. But here's 3 ways that I was able to survive. 1, I went on a strict exercise regimen when I was in there. I knew that I needed to exhaust myself physically in order to get some rest and some type of normalcy. And on that note, I often would sleep during the day and be awake at night because it was more quieter at night somewhat. And I just wanted to be on the opposite schedule of everyone else. And I would hoard my food trays that came through, stack them up, and eat one big meal at the end of it all, or at least at the end of the day. For anybody wondering what the strict physical or exercise regimen was, it was at least 500 burpees a day, 500 crunches, 500 push-ups, 500 squats, 500 jumping jacks, and more. And of course, I would alternate and do different exercises, but all in all, I wanted to continue to push myself physically and keep myself occupied and practice some form of discipline because when I was placed in a hole, I did not know when I was going to be let back out. That being said, though, I still lost 55 pounds, and a major contribution to that is after the correctional officers that were working one segregation unit where I was housed repeatedly told me that they were going to do stuff to my food. Well, I stopped eating unless a good shift was on and I felt that the food was safe and not contaminated, for whatever that means in prison. The next thing is I would play chess with my next door neighbors. There was a vent system, as there is in most solitary confinement units, prisons, etc. And we played prison in solitary confinement, play chess in solitary confinement, very similar to playing Battleship, where you would build a board with pieces out of paper. The individual in a cell outside of yourself would build a board with, pieces as well. Pieces that represented both yours and his, and you would call out the moves. It would be like pawn A2 to A4, and he would move the coordinating piece on his board and hear your moves through the vent, and vice versa. And chess was a good thing back there because it helped the mind go. And in a lot of cases in solitary confinement, depending upon your status, you weren't allowed books, which is really bad because the brain starts to deteriorate or go into a lethargic state. I hope I said that word right after doing some studying. But nonetheless, chess kept me going and had some of the best games I ever had with some individuals down there. And rest in peace, Ulysses, who had been in solitary confinement for over 27 years at the time when I went down there and taught me how to play chess in the hole to keep my mind going. Another tip that I would say hands down was extremely important was whenever I was able to get books, I got books. And whether I had to go fish for books from another cell, Whether I was able to convince a correctional officer that was working, that was cool, to bring me a couple of books from the library cart, even though I wasn't on that status to have books, or, when they gave you the opportunity to have a religious book, I asked for the Bible, got into that. I just kept reading, kept my mind going. I started reading a lot of James Patterson, Dean Koontz as well. Everybody reads Robert Greene for the most part. It's incarcerated, or a lot of people do, and other books, but reading helped me go. And not to mention, presently, I would say fast forward to me now being a free person helped me, with my dialogue and my vocabulary, and allows me to get up here and use some words that I might not have known prior to incarceration, because I had the opportunity to sit down and just read and learn, and also see the world through a written lens, but a lens nonetheless. And it made me think about how life was so much more. And not to mention, when I was in solitary confinement, man, it was spiritual. Like, I found myself back there, because I realized that, the only other place I could have went that was worse was a casket, and I did not want to go there. So that's how I survived solitary confinement. A few of the ways, man. Please put the questions in the chat, in the comments, whatever, man. I love to answer the questions, to support y'all. Never glorifying prison. Just want to be an educator about it, man, because so much stuff is watered down, unreal, and not true, man. So that's it, man. At the end of the day, thank you for the support. Most importantly, stay free. Peace.